Are live with another episode of Mentor Minutes. This is exercise for your leadership brain. It's a chance for people to come together, ask questions about leadership, management, workplace issues. I'm here to put the theory and the principles of leadership into some practical applications to get you over some of those obstacles and make you as productive as possible. So if you have any questions, anything you're struggling with this week, any particular employee, boss issues that you're dealing with, drop down in the comment section, whether you're on YouTube, Twitter, or Facebook, and I'll get to those questions right away. Now, if you want to remain anonymous for whatever reason, sensitive topic, you can always private message me on Facebook or the other channels, or email me at cm@cameronmorsey.com. And since we've been away for the Thanksgiving holiday here in the States, I have a few of those to get to. Rao, good to see you here. The first one comes in and kind of summarizing the issue for you. It's a particular individual. She happens to be a little bit older, complains about people who are outperforming her, and is just generally negative. The discussion's been had a couple of times. This boss has had that discussion with this employee, and it's not bearing the sort of fruit that he's looking for. So my big thing with this is you've had the initial conversation. What I want you to do is make sure that those conversations that you've had, when you give feedback, the most powerful feedback is feedback that is given timely and with specifics. All right, lots of specifics. That's what really helps that feedback. So if the feedback that you gave to this employee in the past wasn't as timely and wasn't as specific as you'd prefer, get timely and specific with it. The second thing to do is, you mentioned in the question about people around her, and that your door is always open, that they should come to you, that sort of thing. What I want you to do is I want you to enlist some help. All right, the way to tackle complaints. So everybody out there, as a leader, you've got those people on your team that complain. It's human nature. But the way to get past that is to focus that complaint into action. So bring the team in around it and say, hey, when Cameron, is complaining about something, ask him what you should do about it. Well, what do they think you should do about that? Well, get them focused on not the complaint, but on the action. And it may be that you have them direct this individual to you as well. All right, so you've got them on your team directing this individual to you so that you can take care of those issues. Now, the other thing it is in regards to talking bad about people that are outperforming her. That is not something that you should say is acceptable, but it's a challenge. So how can we make you better? This is one of those situations where you want to step in as a leader. If you have an employee that isn't performing up to snuff, then you need to step into that relationship and start coaching them. Real simple things. And that's the last thing that I'm going to have on this. Work on being on the tiniest thing first. Get some momentum. Get a success, no matter how small it happens to be. And in this situation, there's a lot of levers you can pull there. But start with something simple, start with something small, and build from there. And that'll help you build the relationship with this employee to get further improvement and hopefully turn that negativity and that complaining around quite a bit. Crystal Hajera, so good to see you here. Next question I received offline. If anybody has any questions, as we've got some more people on here, if you have any questions, drop down in the comment section. I'll get right to them. The next individual has been with the team for just a short period of time, just 1 year, and that's pretty short time as far as this group is concerned, and has been asked to put in for a supervisor position against, we'll use the competitive terms, against 3 other individuals who have 3 years or more of service. And the issue is that the supervisor, the direct supervisor, doesn't actually give the important work, the tough projects, to this person. They give them to the other individuals. And so the question is whether the supervisor is sabotaging the attempts, that sort of thing. This individual always ends up at the top of the scorecard, so is performing really well. And it may be that this isn't your time to be a supervisor. I don't want to say that, but you know what? You've got 3 people with more experience. It may be that this isn't your time. That's fine. But you did get asked to apply for the position. All right, so that's a big feather in your cap. The fact that you're not getting the work just means that what I would say is don't get into motives or anything else on it. When you have these sort of things that cause that emotional reaction, try not to overthink the issue. What I want you to do is simply ask for what you want. So it may be, again, getting back to the feedback thing, timely and specific. So you know what, Cameron has been given this. And so you can go to your supervisor and say, hey, just so you know, I saw that you gave Cameron this particular project. I would love a chance the next time that comes up to get a chance to tackle that. I think that I've got the skill set to do so. So you get specific with what you're asking for. You don't go to them, and I give this advice all the time, to go to them with vague questions of, hey, if you got any projects, that sort of thing. Get specific in this case, because it sounds like there's a lot of duties that are being handed out. So get specific with it and ask for what you want. All right, this isn't you overstepping your bounds. This isn't you getting in their grill. This isn't you talking about motivation. This is you simply asking to build on your skill sets and create more for the organization, which isn't a bad thing at all. Maza, good to see you here. And Sherry, recommend a book to read. And that's funny because the next question was, is there a book you'd recommend for a team to read together? So I actually just gave a book recommendation to one of my corporate clients, and I'll give this to you. So Sherry, you've got two choices. All right, if it's a book for yourself, look at Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink, or look at Radical Candor by Kim Scott. Those are two of my favorite books that have come out recently. So Extreme Ownership or Radical Candor. Take a look at the summaries on Amazon and see which one fits you best, but those are two of my favorites that have come out right now. I'll give you a third. No, I'm not going to give you a third one. Pick one of those two, then you can come back to me in another couple of weeks and ask for another one. When we talk about a book that the team reads together, all right, now that's a different dynamic. Both of those books, great books. But in a team environment, unless it's a team of leaders, those might not necessarily play out. Those can certainly work. Cindy, so good to see you here. So the other ones that I recommend from a team perspective, I will tell you that the book that I've handed out to almost every supervisor that I had back in my corporate career was Who Moved My Cheese by Spencer Johnson. So a great book on change management. It's simple. It takes all of an hour and a half to read, but has some really powerful principles in regards to change management. If you want to improve things as a leader, if you want to be a good leader, you have to improve things, and that takes change. So you have to have a team that's willing to work with that. The second one is one that, you know what, on first look over a decade ago, I didn't particularly like. But revisiting it recently on one of my book discussions, and I'll have another one, noon Pacific Standard Time, this Friday, Team of Teams by General Stanley McChrystal. Good book. But we'll talk more about it at noon on Friday. But the other one is The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni. So if you're reading a book together as a team, Who Moved My Cheese would quite frankly be my number one pick, because we can all get better at change management. Everybody learns something when they look at that book. The second one would be The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. That'll create some great discussion points that you can all work towards. So love the question. And yeah, it's funny. That's very timely there. And as we've had more people jump on, if you have any questions, any struggles, any obstacles you've been dealing with this week or that you are going to have to deal with later on in the week, drop down in the comments. I'll be happy to get to those in real time. Next question I have is, I would like to get your advice on some hints to keep the faith in a destructive, non-caring, not responding work environment. Not necessarily acting or reacting to your boss and mates, but some advice to pamper oneself to get more strengths to handle these difficult work situations. So when you find yourself in a difficult environment, all right, this gets into, my big advice on this is get into work-life balance. All right, it isn't necessarily the quantity of personal time that you have versus the quantity of work time that you have. What I want you to focus on is the quality. You mentioned pampering in this question. So the question is how can you get more quality time outside of work? What that does is that builds up your defenses against that negativity. You know, remember the last great weekend that you had and how Monday just flowed right along. Don't get me wrong, you probably got tripped up on a couple of things, but having that quality time, and what I mean by that is, what do you enjoy doing? Is it going out and seeing a movie? Is it going out to a restaurant? Is it cooking a new recipe at home? Is it stopping by Barnes & Noble and browsing the racks? Is it getting a cup of coffee and reading a magazine at Starbucks? What is it that you enjoy doing? And then make time for it. All right, schedule it into your calendar. I prefer once during the week, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, after work, you do something fun, one of those, just one of those, and then you schedule something for on the weekend, all right, some quality time. Now, there's times when going home and vegging out over a weekend is fine, but in general, I prefer to have, and what will actually recharge your batteries more is actually having some fun activity. It might be golfing, it might be hiking, it might be any of the other things that I mentioned before. But some activity, do at least one thing. You don't want to walk in on Monday morning and the person and your coworker say, "Hey, what did you do this weekend?" "Oh, nothing, just vegged out." Like I say, that's fine every once in a while, but generally, if you really want to recharge those batteries, find something to do that you really enjoy. Focus on that quality outside of work. Now, you can pamper yourself a little inside of work. Make sure that you're taking your lunches. The first thing is breaks. Make sure that you're taking a lunch. Oftentimes, take that lunch away from work. It may be that you are still bringing a lunch and you're eating it in the car while reading, but get out of work. Get yourself out of that environment. That will help build up some of your defenses against these tough issues. All right? Great question. How do you ensure, next question I got is, how do you ensure coworkers respect their supervisors and the decisions, even when they're tough decisions they did not agree with, i.e. not having to repeat yourself? The most important thing in gaining the respect as a supervisor, this is advice I give to a lot of young supervisors who are overseeing people that are older and more experienced than they are in the work environment. The most important thing to do is to give the reason why you're making that decision, why you're telling them to do something. All right, and it doesn't have to be a lot. It can simply be a sentence fragment. Because blank. I need you to go over and help Cameron out because blank. All right, you give them the reason why. What that does is that allows them a window into your thought process. And it lets them know that you have a thought process behind what it is that you're doing. And that goes a long way towards that respect. The second thing to do, if you want respect and you want people to listen, this is a great tactic to use. Ask them questions. Ask for their feedback on things. All right? If you want respect, give respect. And everybody has a point of view. Everybody has an idea on how to fix the problems. So ask them. And it may be that you lead the discussion. Hey, just so you know, I was thinking about doing this in relation to sales next week. What do you think about that? Is that a good idea or do you have a better one? So bring them into the discussion. Show them that you value their opinion. That can be something that's absolutely huge as far as getting respect and getting them to listen to you in the first place. So those would be just two things that I would recommend. The why, and then bring them into the discussion. Ask for their opinion on things. That will help gain respect for you and will also help them just listen, period. Next question I have is, complaints may be an opportunity to improve things. We may view complaints as just complaining for no good reason, but from personal experience, there's often validity behind the complaint. And this was a comment that was just sent over to me, but I wanted to include it in one of these Mentor Minute sessions because, hey, we just talked about complaints maybe 5-10 minutes ago. And it's something that's going to happen on a regular basis. And too many times we get defensive as leaders and we dismiss it, especially if it comes from somebody that complains a lot. But there is oftentimes a kernel of truth to that complaint. And so when it comes up, don't just dismiss it. Send it through the filter and see if there is a kernel of truth. It may be that it's been overblown, all right? But there might be some seed of truth there. Look for it. That can help you get ahead of complaints and get ahead of issues. Remember, as a leader, you're looking to improve things. And those things that cause friction for your team, even if they're small and even if they get overblown, are areas where you could make improvements. Doesn't mean that you have to. You may have higher priority issues to deal with, but those can be little improvements that you can make. Next question I received was, how do you handle upper management not treating management with dignity and respect and not held to the same expectations? That second part is what I see too many times, is differing expectations. Part of this is I want you to remember this as you move on in your career, as you move up the corporate ladder. Make sure you don't emulate these behaviors. The biggest problem with poor executive teams is that they tend to breed more poor executive teams. All right. So make sure that this is a lesson in what not to do, that you cement that lesson and not a lesson in what to do. All right. Now, as far as dealing with that disrespect, all right, what I want to make sure that you're doing is you are getting back to core principles. All right. Are you being a good follower, first and foremost? And that's a hard question. And I don't mean it to come off as accusatory, but we can all be better followers. So are you informing the executives the way that you should? Are you providing solutions, not just problems for them to deal with? Are you listening to them? Are you helping make them better? All right. Get in touch with those things that you can control. All right. And you can control yourself and how you deal with your upper management and how you support them. I realize this isn't popular advice to give, that when you have poor executive team that you need to knuckle down and do work. But what is the other option? All right, you control that. You control your reactions. Julie, good to see you here. You control those reactions so you can have the most power and the most influence over yourself and what you do in those particular situations. Now, getting to coping. Part of it is going to be anticipating it. So what is it that they come down and disrespect you on most? All right? Just having that window into what is going to potentially be coming down the pike can be something that prepares you and buffers you against that. Getting back to that work-life balance, make sure that you're taking care of yourself quality-wise outside of work. Second thing is share your successes amongst the team. It's not just you that is dealing with this executive team. It is all of your peers. So maybe the executives aren't going to listen to your successes. Never hurts to tell them anyways. But also share them with the executive team. You can be a support structure for each other. I realize that that should be coming from on high. But in many cases, in too many cases, that doesn't take place. So make sure that you're supporting each other in that environment as much as possible. But that's how to deal with that difficult situation. I've got one last question offline. So if you have questions for me at all, anything that you've been dealing with this week, drop down in the comment section. I'll tackle it right away. Otherwise, this is the last question of the day. How do you coach an employee that is loud and bubbly? I enjoy his enthusiasm, but other teams' employees don't appreciate it so much. I think you might be answering this question. The way to deal with those boisterous employees, all right, maybe not bubbly, but loud, and you know they certainly exist, is to get specific with that feedback. All right, so when they are loud, this is where you have that opens up the opportunity. Hey, just so you know, Cameron. Just so you know, hey, I love the enthusiasm. It's absolutely great. But if you can just tone it down just a notch on these peaks, I'd appreciate it. I just don't want it to be a disruption. I want it to be something that is good for everybody, not something that's necessarily a disruption. All right. So you open up that conversation. And then what's going to happen with this is you're going to have to calibrate them. Once you have that initial discussion, then when they are loud and bubbly again, you can go ahead and reference them. And eventually it just gets into a look. All right, they'll be loud and bubbly, and just like a kid that did something wrong, they'll realize it after the fact, look to you, and you can just give them the look like, mm-hmm. So have the opening discussion and then calibrate it. For some of these personality traits, that's the best you can do in this particular case. All right. Next question comes in from Evan, and it's how do you get someone to do something they don't want to do? You give them a reason why. But the real question is the WIFM, all right? What's in it for me? It's a huge motivating factor for everybody. Everybody takes those personal takeaways from a particular thing. So why is it valuable to get them? How do they get a benefit out of it? All right, and sometimes that may not be it. But what you can do is in getting the why. So let's say you have a crummy duty, Evan, that nobody really wants to do. All right, so you give the reason why it needs to be done. But then what you do is you really highlight the sense of importance behind it. All right. Why is this crummy task that needs to be done every day vitally important to the organization? Now, you wouldn't ask them to do it if it wasn't important and if it wasn't necessary. So there is a reason for it, but really look to magnify the importance of that task. Now, what it also can be is it also can be a tracking mechanism for you too sometimes. Sometimes it may be that somebody who has to, sweep the floors of the warehouse. I've been involved in an organization where the warehouse was spotless. All right. It may be that they wear the crown for the week. All right. You make something fun out of it. All right. So magnify the importance of it and magnify the fun of it. And the last thing is give them as much autonomy in doing it as possible. All right. Give them the freedom. As long as the result takes place, give them the freedom to do it how they want. All right. So that's how to tackle it as much as possible. Give the reason why. Magnify the importance, the fun, and the autonomy behind it, and that can hopefully get you past some of that. Next question comes in from Twitter, and it's, how do you deal when you see something wrong at your job with someone and you want to confront them? Well, I appreciate the fact that you want to confront them. All right, that's important, that you don't just run to the supervisor, certainly not initially. So if you see something wrong, then what I want you to do is I want you to confront them, but I want you to do it from an inquisitive standpoint, not a judgmental standpoint. Hey, Cameron, I noticed that you did this with your last customer. I'm just, why, and you phrase it slightly differently, but, why is it that you did that? So seek more information, seek to understand, not to be understood, to use the old Stephen Covey thing. So look to do it that way and confront them in an inquisitive way, not in a confrontational way. Elise has the next question, and it's effective ways to manage a team based in 3 different offices. So when you have a team that is dispersed, and this comes up a lot nowadays with dispersed teams, you want to set up a structure in place. So you want to give them tools. Don't get me wrong, whether it's Skype, Slack, some sort of instant messenger, but something better than email. All right, where they can converse as a group in some sort of live environment. There's lots of tools out there, Elise. So make sure that they have that so that they can have that interaction with one another. But I want to make sure that you are interacting with every single employee. I won't say every single day, I was about to say that, but every other day that you are reaching out to each employee as much as possible. And that maybe that's not possible in your dynamic, but it can be a phone call. Just checking in. Hey, seeing if you needed anything from me. Can be, these video calls are as good as possible with that. The last thing I want to mention is having team meetings. All right, maybe on a weekly basis, some sort of team meeting. I know a lot of places that have these on a daily basis where they're doing a video, scrum session if they're in an agile environment, but at least on a weekly basis, bring the team together, preferably in an environment that they can see each other. So you're getting really quality communication, and that can help bring them together just a little bit more. Great question, Elise. Appreciate it. Safinaz has the next one. It's how to object to something I don't want to do in my work by suitable ways. So the flip side of getting somebody to do what they don't want to do, how do I get out of doing what I don't want to do? And it is, part of it is same thing. First and foremost, why? All right. Why shouldn't you do it? All right. So, hey, I need you to do this. Okay, but I was going to be doing this. So it might be a priority standpoint. All right. So give them a reason why you don't want to do it. All right, second thing is not presenting. This goes back to those principles of not presenting your boss with problems, present them with solutions. Give a solution. Maybe you can give it to Cameron. That's one solution that Cameron won't appreciate necessarily. Or, maybe we can schedule it for another time, whatever it is, but give them another option. So if you don't want to do something, explain why you don't want to do it, and then give them another option for getting it done. All right, that's the way to tackle that, Safinaz. And it's obviously, as you see, very situational dependent, but that's the best way to do it in a suitable way, not in a way that makes it look like you're arrogant and don't want to do anything, which is certainly not what you want to get across. So if you have any questions, you've got maybe 10 seconds to drop them down in the comment section. Otherwise, I will go ahead and end it. If you came to this late, no big deal. You can always drop down your comments or your question in the comment section. I check that before I go on the next Mentor Minutes episode. You can always email me, cm@CameronMorrissey.com, or you can direct message me on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, any of those. So with that being said, appreciate all the questions today. It's good to be back in the saddle with these Mentor Minutes episodes, and I'll be diving on more of these as we head in deeper into the holiday season. So hope everybody's having a good one out there, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.